Well, hey there, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here. Another Wednesday night, another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything, and it is 6 p.m. Pacific, and here we are on Facebook Live. Love to see you there, so, hit the like or, well, it doesn't have to be a like, but likes are always nice and little hearts and stuff. And reminder that all of these Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. And if you're interested in voiceover coaching with me, davefennoy.com, click on the Study VO tab at the top, and away you go. You can book yourself. And hey, it's holiday time. Wait a minute. Let me get my prop here. Yeah. Ho ho ho, Black Santa! It's holiday time, and I've got the holiday deals going. So if you would like to get a 5, a 10, or 20 pack of coaching sessions, there's a big break on prices right now. So, ho, ho, ho. Thank you. Oh, yeah, it's Dave Fennoy again. I have a guest this evening that several people, from time to time, I'm like, well, let's see, I need to talk to some people. And we can't all possibly know everybody in this business. So sometimes I rely on friends of mine to say, well, who would be a good guest? And several people brought this young lady's name up. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Maria Pendolino, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. I'm so glad to be with you, Dave.
Fantastic. Now, have we met before?
We have, but only for about 15 seconds. But in 2017, on stage at Lincoln Center, you presented me with my very first Voice Arts Award at the
Ah,
Sovas.
well, what do you know? And
So
what was it for?
it was for Outstanding E-Learning Project, and we had a little bit of a laugh because the title of the project was How to Wear a Female Condom. And it was for reproductive health, which I'm very passionate about. And that's the kind of stuff that maybe doesn't get announced at award ceremonies all the
Yeah,
time.
never
So we
seen
had a
that
little,
at the Grammys, the Emmys, or the
no,
Oscars.
we had a good little laugh about it, and you handed me the statue, and then I shook for about 45 seconds as I tried to remember everyone I wanted to thank.
Oh boy! Well, once again, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you come highly recommended as somebody that I should talk to. Um, and I was reading your bio, and you started off as a child actor. Now, were your parents pushing you, or were you dragging them?
I was dragging them. I caught the Broadway bug, I think, when I was maybe like 9 or 10 years old, probably like watching the Tony Awards every year and just being fascinated by that and singing chorus in school and things like that. But I was in my basement just like scream singing the Phantom of the Opera and Les Mis on a boombox that I bought with my first communion money.
Well,
Uh, you
were
know,
you in the basement because your parents? No, you got to go downstairs.
That's right. I was too loud. But I had a piano teacher who did, community theater around Buffalo where I grew up. And she was auditioning to be a nun in a community theater production of The Sound of Music. And of course, there are children in that. So she said, would you like to come along with me to the community center to audition? So I went and I had my like little Disney piano songbook. And I went and auditioned. And that started me doing all sorts of plays and musicals as a kid, and then did drama club in high school, and then I went to college for theater. So it started early, but no, my parents were not stage parents. I would walk up to them with the newspaper with like the audition circled that I needed to be driven to, informing them I need a check for this, I need you to order me this sheet music, I need these character shoes, and they're just like, oh God, what have we done? No, it
We've
wasn't their
created
idea.
a monster.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness! But you know what? It's interesting. I did theater when I was a kid too, uh, and I can't say that my parents pushed me, but I wasn't like, oh, I got to do this theater. I enjoyed it, but I think I was more like, oh yeah, okay. Well, what are we doing? Okay, that's great. But you had the passion early. Now, how did you switch over from? Oh, I saw a little note that you were also you've done some stand-up comedy.
Yeah, so I went to New York and I was pounding the pavement auditioning for everything from Broadway to theater in a barn in New Hampshire that pays $150 a week. And the time that I was in New York City was also kind of the renaissance of filming in New York City. So there were, 3 Law and Orders on the air, Boardwalk Empire with Steve Buscemi.
I
So
love that show.
I was auditioning for everything, and it was great. I took some stand-up comedy classes, and I was taking improv classes, and then voiceover kind of like weaseled its way in there. Somebody mentioned to me, like, oh, have you gotten into commercials at all? That was kind of the beginning of the conversation. And I thought that that was an interesting concept, this idea of being able to make additional money as an actor outside of maybe you have a 1 week contract on a TV show, and then maybe you have a few weeks before the next thing you've booked, or you have a summer theater contract, so you can't take anything that's going to conflict with that. And my friend was like, commercials and voiceover, it tends to move quickly. So like if you audition on Monday, like you could be recording the job on Wednesday. So you might be able to squeeze these in here, among your avails.
So this
So that's
wasn't
kind of,
something that you just, yeah, I'm going to do voiceover because I've got a great voice and I want people to hear me. It wasn't
I
that. It
think
was more of a, hey, this might be convenient.
I think I always knew about like the actors that did voices for animation and video games. I think I
Hmm.
had an awareness of that. I'm not sure if I knew like how that happened, outside of the celebrities that were in, the Disney movies that, would do voice acting just for that. So I'm not sure that I'm not sure I had a concept of like voice actor as career or voice actor as job. But I was definitely the kind of kid that would do funny voices and impressions. And in my theater career, I absolutely loved getting cast in roles that had accents. I was in a Miss Marple murder mystery where I was like a Hungarian maid with a very thick Eastern European accent. And I loved doing things like that. But yeah, I didn't grow up dreaming of being a voice actor, dreaming of doing voiceover. It was something that started out as a sidecar supporting my theatrical habit, really. And then when I realized how interesting and diverse and how many different types of voiceover there are, everything from animated Disney movie to a telephone system, like it runs the gamut of things that you can do with your voice. I got good at it, I got representation, and then I realized that it was a lot easier than spending 18 hours on set and getting picked up by hair and makeup at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Let's talk about your getting good at it.
Sure.
What did once you discovered, hey, you know what, this could be a thing, uh, what is the training that you took? What are the classes? How did you progress from, hey, this is interesting to I'm a professional now?
Absolutely. So I took some classes for a period of time when I was living in Buffalo. I took some classes with Tony Silveri, who runs All Coast Talent, and enjoyed like learning a little bit about the different types of voiceover, mic technique. Being able to make a brand name sparkle in the middle of a commercial sentence.
Or as they
Learning.
might say, oh, give the brand name some love.
Yeah, some love, some zhuzh. And then in New York City, I consider my voiceover mentor Lisa Fiskoff, who's a casting director with Broadcasters in New York. She and her casting partner, Stacey Seidel T. I took a 4 week class that Lisa offered, and then I coached with her privately. And she and her casting partner actually were the ones who started calling me in for auditions first when I wasn't represented. And I got close. I was on a veil for like a Chase national commercial. And after that happened, Lisa said, Stacey and I think it's time that you might meet an agent. And she actually helped me get some meetings in New York. And I ended up signing with Buckwald at that time, which
Oh
was my
boy,
first agent in New York.
old
So
school, old school. So now let me
yeah,
ask you
but
this: Did
classes
you
and
did you have
coaching.
your did you have your demo at that time?
I did not have a demo at that time. I had a couple of clips of things that I had recorded. And when I went in to meet with the different agents, at that time, most of the agencies still had their in house booths,
Yeah.
many with booth directors. So they gave me just a bunch of copy to read, threw a lot of direction at me, and just asked me to read. And that was kind of how I got the approval to be on the roster.
So let me ask you this: what years are we talking about here?
So this was between like 2009 to 2012, kind of when I get started. It took me about 3 years from the very first class I took to actually like making money as a voice actor.
Okay. So you actually got in at the last part of old school.
Yeah.
I sometimes am kind of jealous of, well, I'll put it this way. Sometimes I actually feel lucky that I came in the old school, up with agents. You went to them to audition, you went to somebody else's studio. I didn't have to have a home studio. I didn't have to audition on my own. My point of reference was an agent who sent auditions, and it's a whole new world now. Now, I've joined that whole new world, but I got to, I was already, had already started, already had a career going, and just had to expand some things. But it's kind of daunting now for somebody
Yeah,
getting in this business.
it is. And there's, I think one of the things that's challenging for people who are wanting to start voice acting now is that no one can tell you the one way to do it, because there's 100 different ways that you could become successful and make it a career. But yeah, when I first started, the access that I had was to top tier union auditions that were going from casting directors to agents. I was going to my agency's office almost every day to read whatever copy had come in for those auditions, being directed by a booth director, and then going home. And as I got better and better, and as everybody started to get cable internet, installed in their apartment, then there was the option to sometimes MP3 from home. So, I bought on eBay, a USB microphone, and I would occasionally sit under my duvet cover and MP3 from home on ones that were like a rush, or if I was on set for a TV booking, or if I couldn't get to the agency's office on that day and the booth director felt comfortable sending me the copy because it wasn't under the strictest of NDAs, then I was recording an audition here or there. So as I started to get better and started to be more comfortable with that, that's when I kind of said to myself, like, is there more out there? Like, are there more things I can be doing besides just what my agency is sending me? And that's when I discovered the industrial side of voiceover. So things like e-learning, corporate narration, telephone systems, explainer videos, all of these things that agents and managers really, they don't specialize in. They're not particularly high paying jobs. Sometimes it's, you can make good money at it because it's a high volume perhaps, but it's not the kind of booking that a SAG National Class A commercial is going to get you. So they don't play in that sandbox as much. And that's when I kind of discovered that I could be this actor that had access to the top opportunities in, commercials, animation, interactive, promo, narration through my representation. But then I could also be a business owner. I could be someone who is a voice actor who provides voiceover services to companies, to video production companies. And these are the types of people who are not using casting directors or agents. They're working directly most of the time with talents. I have a client who is a compliance director at a hospital. Like, they don't talk to agents and casting directors. She's just putting my voice into a PowerPoint that the doctors have to watch. And I really didn't even know about that world until I went out and found it.
And now let's talk about that. How did you go out and find it? When this light bulb went off, what were the steps you took? And I know, and I just want to mention this to people, that one of the things you do is teach, and you teach that, and people can get in touch with you at voicebymaria.com. So you, starting on your own with this new discovery, how did you make that part of your career happen?
I Googled voiceover jobs and I found voice123.com. So I actually created an online casting profile, and I specifically was focusing on things like e-learning and corporate narration, where they needed people who were very comfortable saying complicated terms, medical terms, business jargon, because I just happen to be good at that. So, I can make it sound like I'm
anything
just...
in your background that made you good at that? Dad a doctor, you went to medical
Yep.
school. but couldn't pass
No,
the.
I actually worked at a bank for several years. When I was in college, I kind of got a summer job doing like phone calls and filing at a mortgage company. And then when I moved to New York City, I actually had a job at a bank while I was pursuing my acting career. So I had a little bit of corporate America experience and some finance experience alongside all of my active and creative training. So I've got good right brain and left brain activity from the beginning. So I do recognize that that's a high class privilege to come into the business with that kind of acumen.
You know, you mentioned Voices 123, and I imagine you are still there. Yes.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
been a member of that site since 2011.
are you a member of any other pay-to-play sites?
I am a member of Bidalgo, which is based
Okay.
in Germany.
Yeah.
So I've connected with some clients in Europe on that site. And that's really the two sites that I
Okay.
have
You've
opportunities
left
coming
the
to me.
devilvoices.com alone.
I did. I made the decision to leave that site. I did have a profile on that site earlier in the earlier 2010s, but when they moved to their managed service model and obscured how much of a cut they were taking of jobs and also weren't disclosing how much of a cut they were taking to clients, I decided that that was not conducive to my business. So I left the site at that time.
Yeah, good for you. Um, I, I have mentioned many times that I'm not particularly a fan of the pay-to-play sites, but they are a feature of the landscape of voiceover now. They're not going away, at least not in the near future. And if you're going to play in that sandbox, play in a sandbox that's a little more uh, friendly to us, and that would be Voices 123. By the way, that reminds me that Voices 123 is supporting NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors, and you and I are board members on NAVA, and the site went live this week. And if you are interested in becoming a NAVA member, you can go to the site and sign up. But let me ask you this: how did you get involved with NAVA?
Yeah, so Karin Gilfrey, who's the vice president of NAVA, and Tim Friedlander asked me if I wanted to be on the advisory board, I think at the end of the spring or beginning of the summer. And I was really excited. I was really excited about this opportunity. Tim had been speaking very passionately for at least 2 years about trying to find a pathway to access to health insurance for voice actors, maybe folks who weren't yet in SAG-AFTRA or people who weren't qualifying for the SAG-AFTRA health plan, or other people who are freelancing and were looking for some sort of healthcare support. So I was really excited to be a part of looking for ways to support voice actors in their journey and providing the access to healthcare is something that's really exciting. The other thing that I really liked was Karin and Tim's commitment to providing non-biased factual information about different things in our industry. There's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of people with microphones, literally all of us, right?
Well,
So, sometimes it's hard to know where to get good information, right information. So I liked the idea of having a central place where professionals, people who are recognized in the industry, recognized in the business, were committed to providing that kind of information, career guidance, mentorship, and I was also friends with Brad Venable. I coached with him and was such a fan of him and his work. So to know that, his name and the financial assistance and scholarships for folks lives on in his name, that's something that I'm really, really proud to support.
oh yeah. Well, and Tim and Karin did the impossible. They were told there's no way you can get a healthcare program or find a healthcare provider that will open its doors for your little voice actors. But they did. They did, and it's a really good thing. Now, and it's not even something that personally I'm going to take advantage of. I'm SAG-AFTRA. I've got great insurance. But I know of so many people who are working, not qualifying for SAG-AFTRA insurance. Maybe they're working FICOR, but they're just not quite making enough to qualify. And this gives you an opportunity to have affordable health insurance with a major carrier. So bravo, bravo, bravo. I wish I could say I was responsible on the board, but it was really Tim and Karin who did all the heavy lifting. Just a reminder, we are open for questions for Maria. One of the things she teaches is how to think more like a business. And let's talk about that a little bit. What are the things you say to voice actors? And I always feel I'm more artist than business person. So I'm just the kind of person who needs to hear what you have to say. What are the things you share with voice actors to help them become business people?
Absolutely. So, one thing that I think is pretty unique about voice actors who are in the marketplace and looking for their own work. Maybe you're on an online casting site, or maybe you've built a website and you're hoping that people will find you and what you do through Google, or maybe you're going to in-person networking events in your community and meeting other business owners who might need voiceover services. One of the things that I think is interesting is that voiceover is really at that intersection of art and commerce. Your voice is being used in the moment to sell a product or to educate. And there's a transaction happening between not only you and your client, but also your client and then their clients, the people that they are trying to sell products and services to. And it's a little bit different than like a Broadway actor on stage. They're not thinking about the people in the seats, how much they paid for their tickets, because their salary doesn't change based on the butts in the seats on Broadway. Or if you've been booked on a TV show, whether or not, the network has sold all of its advertising, that doesn't affect your ability to get your paycheck. But in voiceover, we're actually right at that intersection where the money conversation is happening, and we're participating in that, especially if you are marketing your own services. And one of the things that I think is challenging as an actor, as an artist, or a creative that comes to a negotiating table is from a very young age or early stage in our artistic career, we are taught by our teachers and mentors to say yes, because jobs lead to jobs, right? You might meet a director, or you might meet a producer, or you might meet someone who likes your work on one thing. And then there's always this kind of like dangled carrot of like the next thing. Will they cast you again? If you do this workshop for literally $0, will you then be in the final production? So we're taught to say yes. We're taught to maybe agree to less than because there's more at the end of the tunnel. And then you get to the end of the tunnel and there's nothing there, right? So I think I ask voice actors to think of themselves, of course, as an actor and a creative person who brings that emotion and vulnerability to everything we do, but also to have a business mind about it and think of yourself as a business, as something that has value, and to recognize that you don't have to say yes to everything to build your career. The other thing that I like to tell people is that when you are negotiating with a client, if you've done your own marketing, or you've reached out to people on LinkedIn, or somebody responded to one of your auditions on an online casting site, there's not a deficit between you and the client. You are two business people coming to the table to talk about working together. So you are not at a negative position just because they have the job. They have the opportunity, but they also need you. They need you and your services. So you come to the negotiating table as two equivalent entities who are looking to enter into a business arrangement. You have the product or service that they're looking for, and they have a need for it. So I think if you set your mindset to believe that you are equals and you're having that equivalent conversation, it becomes less scary. You don't need to be afraid of the conversations with clients or people who are interested in using your services. They are just as perhaps, afraid or cautious because, they're trying to get something done too, whether that's within their budget or their boss told them they had to hire a voice actor for this particular project. They may have nerves or be unsure about something as well.
They may be as unsure as you are.
Absolutely.
Hey, I got
so you
somebody
both come
here.
Into that.
Somebody here wants to make a comment. Randy Thomas. How you doing, Randy? Maria, you are a talented force. You use your voice for good and give back to the community. What a big dream now. And I thought you were going to have a question. You just had nice things to say, but that's all wonderful. Let's see another one. Rich Hoff Jr., have you ever had to relocate for VO work, or have you been able to work in your current locale?
That's a great question. So I obviously have the privilege of building my career in a major market because I did build my career in New York City, and that's where I first got representation and exposure to casting directors and had the opportunity to kind of be in that world.
Quick question.
And
Now, were you living in New York, or I know you're in Buffalo now, correct?
yeah, so I actually left Buffalo. I left New York City for Buffalo in 2014. So I was well early of the, COVID New York exodus or major city exodus that happened due to the pandemic. My business definitely took a hit when I left New York City. Ultimately, I made the decision to leave for my health, because New York City is not kind to people who have mobility challenges. So I ultimately decided to relocate to Buffalo, where I have friends and family, and it was a little bit easier to get around. So my business took a little bit of a hit. There were casting directors that I was absolutely on their call-in lists when I lived in New York, but from 2014 until COVID, New York was still an in-person audition city.
Yeah.
And many people don't know this. You had to physically go to casting directors' offices and studios to audition. LA abandoned that, in a lot of cases for stuff years ago because of the, driving and everything. There were some things that you were still going to studios to audition, but a lot of things you were able to record your auditions on MP3s and send them
But
to your
but
agents or
also in New
managers.
York. Now I came in 1990 to L.A., but also in New York at the time when you were going in, and this went on for years. Uh, Not only was your agent there, but the client was there.
Yeah, in
You
some
had clients, creatives, at your audition, giving notes and direction.
In some cases, yeah. Yeah, it was just a totally different, kind of isolated environment. So, if the person who asked the question, if they would have asked that question in, 2018, I might have said, you can do some voiceover not in a major market, but there are some things that may not be as available to you until you become a name or in demand where people will be more flexible for you.
Absolutely.
But
I've had to change my answer to students. Well, I'm living here. Do I have to move to LA or New York or Chicago? And my answer used to be, well, probably you could still do something. But as you're saying, it doesn't really matter now where you live. If you got
no,
a
I
Mac, a
would say
microphone, high speed internet.
yeah, in this kind of post-COVID world, or in the dredges of what's left of this pandemic, the majority of the breakdowns that I see from my representatives specifically say that they want actors that have home studios and have access to Source Connect or other connection technology. I would say, the animation and interactive out of Los Angeles, some people are getting back in studio, and I know that some voice directors have a preference of working with people in person, and there's certainly a chemistry that happens, being able to see people and be in person. So I think that will continue to be a hybrid. But, there are people who have left the major markets and they're continuing, their roles on shows or roles in games. And it's all the more reason to make sure that your home studio is, up to snuff and perfection, because there really isn't that major market requirement to book some of the biggest jobs anymore.
Yeah. I want to talk about your home studio in a minute, but good friend of mine and a radio legend, Talia Trigueros, who's just been a major radio star in Quiet Storm and the Bay Area and here in Los Angeles on the wave for decades. And, one of my favorite people on the planet. When making a deal on my own, it sometimes feels like I'm a piece of meat in a market. And the question comes up, am I worth $1 a pound or $1 million a pound?
I think it's totally up to you. When I'm coaching students or I'm teaching in webinars about that, I call that the pick up the mic fee. What am I willing to get out of bed and pick up the mic for? And in different categories, that number could be different. If a small business reaches out to me, let's say a dentist's office in Miami happens to Google, voiceover for phone system and lands on my website. My pick up the mic fee for the dentist in Miami is going to be different than when a producer reaches out to me and says, we'd like to use your voice on a series of 20 commercials for a regional bank or something. So I have in the back of my mind, the numbers that work for me and what I know I'm worth. And then the other thing that I consider is this going to conflict my business in any way? If I take an opportunity from someone who came to me directly, is that going to prevent me from being able to take advantage of the opportunities that my agents and management team bring to the table? I never want to do, a small job here or there for a quick paycheck, only to find out that that takes me out of the running for a major campaign that maybe I was requested for because I had worked with that client before, or they were on the same account, or a casting director thought I'd be particularly good for something. Yeah. I never want to write back to my agent and say, I can't take that audition because I did this thing for $300 just because it was quick and easy. So I always consider...
And for those who don't know, what you're talking about is exclusivity. And often, especially union gigs, if like I'm one of the Lexus voices, I can't even audition for, Ford or anybody else. And I still get auditions and sorry, can't do it. And one of the things that can happen, you could do this small market job in a category that now excludes you from being able to do the nationwide job that would have paid a lot more money. So you have to be very careful about that. Just for clarification there. And a question mark, do you have a rate sheet either on your website or posted next to the phone so you can tell people what the rate is?
Yeah, I have a list of different categories that seem to come up a lot for me. So for me, the things that I, tend to book on my own are mostly in the non-broadcast space. Mm-hmm. So that would be things like e-learning, explainer videos, corporate narration, telephone systems, very, very like short-term small market promos, or, short-term political things that may only run for a week or things like that. So I have kind of a list that I keep, on my Dropbox that I can quickly glance at. I also have a Google Doc that I started probably about 6 years ago that I call Popular Quotes. And it's, when I've given this quote for an e-learning project, if another client 2 years later walks into my box and it's a very similar project, instead of me, rewriting the script here, I can just go to this Google Doc that I've saved and say, oh, I remember I quoted something like this. There it is. Copy paste, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
But I don't publish my rate card. And that's because I always want to hear more from the client about what it is. And I also want to ask them if they have a budget. Because if they have a budget in mind, we don't need to have a 17 email conversation. I'll just let you know if your budget works or not.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to ask that question. I don't want to lock myself into something.
All right. I got a question here. Rich Hoff Jr. How involved in the marketing process do VAs have to be for projects you've completed? More for animation, less for corporate stuff?
Yeah, I would say any of my non-broadcast corporate clients, nobody has ever asked me to market or promote the work that I've done. I think if you do animation and interactive, I think, those teams really love to see you sharing and loving the project on social.
But not before it's out.
Not before it's out, for sure. You've signed your NDAs and you've signed your life away. You may not even know what it is until it comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think after it's out to the public, those types of studios love to see you, championing the project and, interacting with fans and letting them know how much you enjoyed being a part of that. But, as a commercial voice actor, as a, corporate narration or non-broadcast voice actor, there really isn't an expectation. I think one time I was in a commercial session, I did a voiceover for several years for Dannon's Too Good Greek Yogurt. And when I mentioned in the session that I actually loved the product, they were like, oh, we'll send you a case.
Oh, wow. Did you have room in your refrigerator?
I did have room in my refrigerator for a case of yogurt. But no, I would say that in most of the genres of voiceover, there's not an expectation that you are taking on the labor of marketing the project or product for them.
Oh, yeah. All right. Marianne V.O. Mills, good evening, Dave and Maria. I was in the military and I was a social worker before I became a voiceover artist. What is the best way to market for e-learning corporate jobs?
Well, I think, you right there in your previous experience, you have something that makes you different than other folks. So I would try to find people who are producing e learning content or video content specifically for social services organizations, because you have that unique experience of being very familiar with that language, very familiar with the
Hmm?
world, very familiar with the tone that would be needed. And, probably for many years, you were on the receiving end of training presentations and webinars that you took, so you know how to make them better. So I would focus on looking for those types of people. I think LinkedIn would be a great resource to search for the people who are working on those types of things. You can also check industry awards and conferences are a great place to find what type of work people are doing, because a lot of times they're sharing that. So a little bit of Googling, doing some research and lead generation, find out, who's producing the e-learning and training and who's proud of the work that they've done for social services and social justice organizations around the country. And then I think you could lead with, I'm a voice actor and former social worker. That would be an email that they're not seeing in their box every day from people reaching out to them.
I'd also include the military because we are always thankful for your service. Um,
Absolutely.
Got another question here. Rich Hoff again. No, well, that wasn't. I was going to go for this one. And let me get a little room here on the. Maria's session the morning of the first day of the first VOcation in New York City a few years back was totally worth the entire airfare, lodging, etc. from LA, as well as the conference fee. Just saying. Byron Wagner. Now, I'm not asking people to, sing your praises. This is unsolicited. This guy is telling his truth, which is also one of the reasons I have you on here, because several people mentioned to me that you're somebody I should have on. And so far, so good. So let's keep going here. Rich Hoff, invest heavily in search engine optimization to catch gigs, or is it more so word of mouth now?
I think it could be both. There's no one cut or dry strategy for people to find you. Google is a monster, and to stand out in the crowd, you really have to find ways to be competitive. You are likely with your personal website. You're probably not going to be found with the simple, voiceover artist search. It's too general. But if there's something very specific that you do, or something very unique about you, if you can optimize for those kind of longer string searches, like voiceover who specializes in, like we were talking about with Marianne, like voiceover artist with military experience, that's a longer string keyword search. So there's probably fewer people who have something like that on their website. So if you have a page on your website that talks about that, if you have a blog article on your blog that talks about that, you're more likely to be found on page one or page two.
You have
So
to have the right Google words for people's searches.
yeah, but you have to be really strategic about it, because, like I said, if you search voiceover artist, you're going to have 10 pages of, online casting sites and all sorts of places that are spending a lot more money probably than you have to get bubbled up to page one. So it's a slog, but if you're a good writer, you put the time in and you really invest into learning about SEO and how it works.
What
It,
if
it
you're
can
not a
work. I
good
mean,
writer?
you can hire a contract copywriter to do it for you,
Okay, and
or a little combination of both.
and where would you find a contract copywriter?
You can, I would say, look
Google it.
at.
I know.
You can Google that. You can look at freelancing websites, places like Upwork, and there are other online communities specifically about writing, where you could find SEO specialists. Or if the copywriting SEO specialists have done their job, it should come up if you search for hire a SEO copywriter when you Google it. But it takes time. Google really likes and honors organic content. You can't just like copy and paste stuff from one page to another. It has to be unique. It has to be original. And they value authority. They like to see that other people refer back to you. So if people refer to your website by linking your website, that gives you a boost too. So, every time somebody links to your website from theirs, Google recognizes that someone believes that you have something worth saying. So it's not just about putting a ton of copy on your website. It's also about showing that you are an authority figure and knowledgeable in what you do.
Okay. And the questions keep popping. Maria, are you going to be at VO Atlanta?
I'm not going to be at VO Atlanta this year because the month prior I'm going to be at Vocation Cancun in Mexico in February. That
Oh,
Jamie
we'll be
Muffet
there
and Karin
together.
Gilfrey. Yes, we will share a margarita.
There you go. There you
Um,
go.
so yeah, not at VO Atlanta, but I'll be at Vocation Cancun in February.
Ah, fantastic. Now, I know you are also not only involved with NAVA, but you are involved with a website to help voice actors with disabilities be found. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
Absolutely. So, a fellow voice actor, Nick Germain, earlier this year started a Google Doc where voice actors with disabilities could list themselves and be found by casting directors, agents, producers, etc. Very much in the same vein of the PGM VO list that was started by Edward Hong for people of global majority, people of color, and the QueerVox list that was started by JP Karliak for members of the LGBTQIA community. Both of those databases have been invaluable resources to the casting community. And Nick wanted to provide an opportunity for people with disabilities to be found so that when casting was looking for people who had these authentic experiences, they could be located. I remember a casting director shared in a class I took that they were working on an animation where the character had a limb difference. They only had one arm, and production really wanted to make sure that it was represented by a voice actor who had a similar lived experience. You know, every agent probably doesn't have a voice actor with one arm on their roster. So, how do you find these people, right? So, Nick started this list, and I joined with him to partner on making it a larger database. So it will eventually be housed at disabledvoiceactors.com. We are just putting the finishing touches on the intake form, and we're actually going to be launching that next week. And then we are hoping to have the database live to voice seekers, so people like casting directors, agents, producers, people who want to find voice actors. We're hoping to launch that on Friday, December 2nd, which is the day before International Day of People with Disabilities, which is December 3rd.
Oh, fantastic. Let's see. Got a couple of hellos, and Shauna Pennington Baird. Looking forward to seeing both of you in Cancun. I'm looking forward to being there. I've been honored to be asked to be the keynote speaker, and that is going to be one of the highlights of my career. Being able to, it's such an honor. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Absolutely.
Linda Baker, you are smart, articulate, and full of fantastic advice. Great interview. I have to concur. Absolutely. Let's see. Liz Denesnera. Maria is awesome. I think you're feeling a lot of love out there. Trakina White. Maria, so great to see you here. Great discussion, you guys. It is a very great discussion. I'm loving the things that you're sharing, and the idea of mixed career. So you're doing the union, AAA commercials, those kinds of things, and you found a base of your own of work. Now, let me ask you this. Were you to start again, or if you were giving the advice of somebody who's just trying to get into voiceover, what's the first thing they should do?
Take an acting class.
Okay.
Take a stand-up comedy class. Take an improv class. Take a storytelling class. Learn how to be the best performer that you can be. The business, the demos, the agents, the representation, the microphones, the booths, all of that will come. But if you are not a great performer at your core, you are not going to book jobs because you will be reading opposite people like you, Dave, who are fantastic actors, and people like me who have been acting at our parents' dismay since we were 11. So, the competition is fierce, and it's only getting fiercer because the barrier to entry is lower. You don't have to live in New York and LA. You don't have to have an agent immediately to get opportunities. So
also, the number of people who want to do this are spread out across the globe, and the prices are being driven down with things like Fiverr. So if you really need to be good, if you're going to have a career that pays you enough money to have a living. I know from being a friend of the late great Don LaFontaine. Here's a guy that's making $30,000-$40,000 a day. And I really think he is one of the reasons so many people are interested in voiceover, because that legend, I mean, wow. But that's not going to be most people.
No, it's not. And it's certainly not what happens on day one, or even day 365, or even day 3000,
yeah.
or ever.
So I don't think he will ever be equaled in the voiceover world. But
no.
One of the things I like to help people understand is there's enough for different people. Your enough might be different than somebody else's enough. And if your enough requires $200,000 a year, great. I hope you get it. Somebody else's enough is going to be much less than that. And a life lived joyously, doing the things they want with the people they love, and having enough to do that. And so often I think we're forgetting that and just getting caught up in the more and more and more and more. And it's part of the sickness of our society, and I will leave that alone.
I will definitely agree with you. I mean, there is more work than there has ever been. Look at how many different opportunities there are to watch TV shows. You've got broadcast, you've got cable, and there's more streaming networks than I probably even know the name of. There's more places to place advertising than there has ever been. There are more websites than there have ever been that have advertising on them. There are more things talking to us. You can walk up to your refrigerator and your refrigerator informs you that you do not have eggs anymore. That is a voice. There's a voice telling you. We're living in a voice-first world. So I agree with you. There is enough work for everyone. And if you want to get it, you need to be a great competitive performer. And that doesn't come with, starting by, asking, well, how do I make money? How do I market myself? How do I get representation? Those are not the first three questions. The first question is, how do I become a voice actor? And how do you become a voice actor is becoming a great actor.
You have to create the product before you can sell the product.
That's right. If you didn't learn how to bake a cake and then you opened a bakery and somebody walked in and said, I'd like to order a wedding cake, but you don't know how to make that wedding cake. What are you going to do? They're not going to pay you.
Yeah, listen, I'll go on YouTube and I'll figure it out. Pay me the money.
Right.
Oh boy. And let's see, Catherine again. Any snow there yet? Oh, this is so non-voiceover. From one Buffalonian to another, always love your advice.
we are hunkering and bunkering. It looks like it's going to start tomorrow, and the prediction for where I live is it could be up to 4 feet by Saturday. So just pray
but that's
that my
okay.
husband
You never
can,
leave
get
the
through
house
to dig
anyway.
out the generator. No, I don't need to leave the house. I mean, half the time I don't even put on pants. It doesn't matter. So I just need to make sure that we don't lose power.
Okay. Real quick question. I'm looking at your studio. Looks like that Studio Bricks there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have a Studio Bricks 1 Plus in custom indigo. I have a kind of a very blue theme in my office. I've got my panels with Ursula the Sea Witch back there. Kind of a blue-purple kind of scheme.
Blue was my mother's favorite color. Now, how long have you had your Studio Bricks?
I've had my Studio Bricks since 2017, so 5 years.
Okay, so you were actually an early adopter.
Very early adopter, yeah. I started my career in a pre-war closet in an apartment in Astoria, Queens. It was a square that I could physically get my body into. It was not a walk-in closet by any means. And I could get in and I could shut the door, and I had to do all of my auditions and my sessions with my arms like this, because I'm an Italian and I talk with my hands. And if I put my arms up like this, I would scrape my foam on either side.
So you had the
Tyrannosaurus
first 4 years
of
Rex
my
thing
career
going on.
were done in this position with my hands like this. So yes, this is a much better ergonomic experience for me and my sessions.
I always tell people when we're talking about the space that they're going to make it as big as you possibly can. Closets are great, but you want to be able to move because your body informs your voice and all the rest of that stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Boy, let's see. Got another one here. The economy is tightening. Are you worried about opportunity? Your opportunities will be limited.
I'm not. I mean, I'm obviously like, thinking about how people choose to spend their money is a consideration, but advertising will never go away. If you're a commercial voice actor, they may change, what the ad buy is. So maybe they're not going to run at Class A and they're going to focus on internet and streaming. It may change its shape, but the world continues to go round even if the economy isn't at its best point. So I'm not worried, but also I think like a business, and I've put money in savings, and I work with a financial advisor, and I do not rely on the next job coming in to pay my bills because I've worked strategically so that I don't have to feel that way.
One of the things about a poor economy, and they come and go, they're up and they're down. It's a cycle that probably will never change. Is advertisers often spend more to encourage you to get in. You might lose a job, but you're just as likely to gain a job. Often, when the economy is different, they will choose different voices. When the epidemic, when the pandemic hit, suddenly older, more comforting voices became more popular again. So there's ebb and flow, there's up and down. You just have to keep delivering your very best work. I promise, having been doing this for almost 35 years now, I've had ups, I've had downs. The economy's been up, been down. I have survived. It hasn't always been wonderful. There've been some tough times, but it is for everybody. There's nobody is just this.
No, I agree with that 100%.
I've heard of a billionaire recently who made electric cars and bought this web thing, and somehow he seems to be losing a lot of money now. So
Yeah, I don't have any plans to acquire websites, so I think my savings will be okay.
there you go. J. Horace Black. It would not be Ask Dave Fennoy anything without a question from Jay. Over my career, I've noted when economy tightens that they do more advertising, thereby more opportunities. And I did not read that before I put it up there. But yes, you hit the nail on the head. Let's see. Mary Lynn, Buffalo, New York always have a lot of snow. Yeah. Which is why I left Cleveland, because Cleveland always had a lot of snow, and I like it here in California. And as we've been talking about, you can live anywhere now, and people from time to time say, well, the cost of living is so high, but I like it here. I like LA. And I know a lot of people don't, but my tribe here, all good.
Absolutely.
That was the same question. Let's get Rob Kyle. Is there a need for an unproduced demo that showcases the quality of a home studio? Is there a need for an unproduced demo? I'm not sure I understand this question.
So just like a raw home studio sample.
Oh, people do that all
I
the
would say
time.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just, have a clip of you saying, "Hi, my name is Maria Pendolino. I'm in my studio bricks. I'm talking on my Neumann TLM 103. This is what my levels sound like. There's, no processing in my chain. Hope to work with you soon." I think that's a great thing to have on hand.
By the way, that happens all the time. I don't have it on hand, but, I can just do it. I see that a lot, especially with video games. They want to know what you sound like, and the request is for no processing.
They want to know exactly what's going into your mic because they're going to do all the manipulation on their end. They want it as clean and raw as possible.
Speaking of which, Jay back. Maria, what's your mic chain?
So I have two. My daily driver is a Neumann TLM 103. I just really love how it brings out. I have kind of a lower register female voice. I really like how it brings out the color in my lower register. And then I also have, the classic Sennheiser 416, and I'll pull that out if a producer asks for it. If they're working on a specific type of campaign or they want to match something somebody else recorded on that and they'd like us both to be on the same mic, I'm happy to dig it out. But that in the last 12 years, three people I think have asked me to switch the mic from the Neumann to the 416.
It's interesting.
So,
People typically don't ask for the 416. They get it 99% of the time from me and never complain. But they will ask from time to time for my 103. I have them so I can just swing one in and swing one out.
mhm.
And I was just going to say, when you're buying a mic, if you're looking for that Neumann or that Sennheiser, uh, and with the Neumann you're choosing between the 103 or the U87, get the 103. Same capsule, half the price, and it's not as finicky. The U87 likes a big room. You put it in a little tiny booth, and man, it just doesn't sound good. Don't
No,
spend all that extra money.
the U87 knows if like a flea farts in your studio bricks.
Yeah,
You don't want that. And also, I just don't think, for the average working class voice actor, the expectation is not that you have a U87 at home.
yeah.
They don't expect us to have that. So,
Well,
the
they will
103 is a
ask
great
for it,
item.
and I have been asked for it, and I've hung it a few times. My booth is just big enough that it's okay. But that 416, or as they called it, the LA voiceover mic,
That's right.
that's my workhorse. That's my workhorse. So, how can people get in touch with you? And what kinds of things? How free is your well, let me get that up here. How free is are you for teaching?
So I have a Calendly account where people can book business or negotiation coachings. It's just calendly.com/voice by Maria. It's synced with my daily session calendar. So I will be honest and tell you that the slots are, they're there, but they disappear quickly.
Yeah.
So if you don't see anything, feel free to check back. And then I
Now,
teach
if they just go
webinars
to
throughout the year.
voicebymaria.com, is there a place there that they can find it?
I actually don't have it linked on my website because I don't have that much availability. So it really is word of mouth. It's people who have seen me at a conference or seen me on something like this that people, hear about it. Of course, if you don't remember that after this live, you can email me, and my email address and my contact form is on my website. So I do offer those individual slots. And then, throughout the year, I'll do, presenting at conferences. I've also done classes for the voice actors of New York City. I've been on Rhonda Phillips's Late Night Secrets webinars. So, you can kind of see me out and about in the community, teaching classes. So if you can't get in for an individual thing, keep an eye out for the classes that I do. And then if you happen to be interested in signing up for the Disabled Voice Actors database, you can send me an email at disabledvoiceactors@gmail.com, and I will notify you, add you to our mailing list for when the intake form goes live.
Okay. And Jay, once he starts asking, the questions keep coming. Maria, are you a fan of being incorporated, LLC, sole proprietor, S Corp?
I think it's totally up to you and what makes sense for your business, your situation. The S Corp status makes sense for people when you get to a certain income level and the corporate tax rate makes sense. So I would say speak to a CPA who has industry experience, who has worked with actors and knows the ins and outs of that. The tax law changed in 2018 with regards to deductions, and it's different whether or not you are paid as an employee versus a contractor. So there's a lot of nuance. I will say, from a liability perspective, if you are going to be doing work with your own clients and going out there and marketing and booking the business on your own, having a business entity will protect you from a liability standpoint, and you can speak to a lawyer about what makes the most sense. But if you want to make sure that you're not getting sued out there in the marketplace, having a business entity is a great thing from a liability standpoint. Whether or not you're an LLC or an S Corp or whatever, that really is a personal decision based on your income level and what makes sense for your personal tax situation.
Fantastic. Maria Pendolino, my goodness, what a wealth of information. Just from the comments here, I know people are very appreciative of the information that you have shared, as am I. Thank you very much. And despite the fact that been doing this a long time, I always like to learn something new and find another way to keep it going. So thank you for that. And I guess I'll see you in Cancun.
I will see you in Cancun. We'll keep the mojitos cold. And thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, there you have it. Maria Pendolino, once again, had a great guest, great information. Want to say thanks again to her, and thanks to you for being here for another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything, which all of them live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. You can just pop by, and if you miss something or an address or something, you can go back and find it again. If you are interested in voiceover coaching with me, go to davefennoy.com, click on the Study VO tab at the top, and you can book yourself. And we've got a holiday sale going on. So if you're buying 5, 10, or 20 coaching sessions now between now and December 31st, great deal. So book yourself, and I'll see you on Zoom, and we'll learn some stuff together. In the meantime, and in between time, I'm not going to be here next week because it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the next day. I'll be getting prepared, doing some things. I hope you will be getting prepared and getting ready to enjoy your friends and family in a wonderful meal as we give thanks for the bounty that we have. And just a little bit of a tirade again. We've been going through some very interesting times here in America, and everybody's inflation. But the truth of the matter is, we live at a higher lifestyle than most places on the planet. In our own minds and where we are, we're upset about things. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but look at the other side of the coin. We are truly blessed as Americans with all the issues and problems that we have. We are truly blessed. We have so much to be thankful for, and I hope you are thankful, and I'm thankful. Anyway, well, that does it for me for this Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. I will see you next time, which will be a week after Thanksgiving. And in the meantime and in between time, as always, book something.